Welcome to the Family Office Success Podcast, where we explore the strategies, the insights, and the best practices that help families and their advisors build and manage successful family offices. I am your host, Christi Van Rite, and each episode, we dive into the key elements of running a family office. Whether you're a family looking to structure your advisory team for long-term success, or you're a professional managing the complexities of a multi-generational enterprise. From financial oversight and operational efficiency to selecting the right advisors and creating a lasting legacy, this podcast is here to provide practical guidance and expert perspectives. Let's get started. Michelle, I am so excited for this conversation today. I feel like I've been saying for ever, hey, we've been asked to do a behind the scenes call, and we just haven't made it happen. And I don't know why, but I'm super glad we got to make this happen today. Today's topic is going to be bill pay. So for all of you listening, we are doing a behind the curtain, behind the scenes talk on bill pay. It's going to be a little different from our normal podcast where it's a little more formal. This one's going to be very informal. You'll probably see me drinking some coffee and maybe some electrolytes, maybe my water bottle. I got 3 things going today. So hope you enjoy the conversation. If this is your first time to the podcast, welcome. We're so glad you're here. This is the Family Office Success Podcast where we talk all things family office. So let me make the formal welcome. Michelle Deal, welcome.
Yes, thank you. I'm happy to be here.
So Michelle is our lead family relationship manager. Michelle has worked with me. We've known each other a very long time. We've in some capacity worked together probably for the last 8 or 9 years.
Yes.
Ish.
Yes.
And You've been a part of White River since very close to the beginning. And just so everybody else hears it, the reason that we have been able to grow and become who we are today is because Michelle is incredibly awesome at her job, and our clients and families love her, and she makes me look really good. So everyone hears it. Michelle, thank you for everything you do for us. With that, let's talk bill pay. The good, the bad, the ugly, and all the things in between. So just to set this up a little bit, I was talking to our Sprint, this quarter's Sprint group, which is a group of folks who want to do family office services. Maybe they're running them, but they needed a little extra boost, or they haven't started running them and they're trying to figure out what to do. And bill pay seems to always be the thing that they're just not quite sure of. It's this tangible tug and push-pull scenario. Clients want bills paid. RIAs really can't pay bills, especially now. You can't even do an SLOA, really, outside of just a couple of things, which means the client has to sign for everything. And so it's just a lot more complicated on top of that whole custody issue. And even some family offices, even some multifamily offices still have trouble with bill pay. And so we were talking about, when should a group consider adding bill pay to their lineup of services that they're offering? I had my answer. I want to know your answer. And everyone, just so you know, I did no preparation with Michelle to do this. So if you hear some pauses, just know it's because we're thinking on the other side. So, Michelle, when do you think a firm would consider adding bill pay? And then I'll go on to part 2 of that question, which is, why would they not consider adding bill pay?
Okay. I would honestly just say, just based on our experience, I think every client that we have that we do bill pay for finds it extremely helpful. And it really does end up taking a lot of items off their plate that they didn't even realize were not stressors necessarily, but they didn't realize that it freed more of their time and everything. And so I would honestly just say, from experience, if you're going to be doing the bookkeeping, if you're going to be doing those services, bill pay is an easy add, and it's not super complicated to do. It's easy to mess up, but if you're doing it efficiently, I think it's a huge value add for the client. So I would say, yeah, they should add it anytime they're going to be doing accounting, bookkeeping type services.
Okay. I would agree with that. Why wouldn't a firm add bill pay?
I would say if they're not familiar with the process, if they don't have the staff to do it, if they don't see the value in it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the staffing is one of the things that seems to be one of the hurdles, but firms don't usually know it's a hurdle. They don't know what they don't know, right? If you've never done it before,
Exactly.
whenever we started bill pay, we started with one client doing it. How hard
Yeah.
was it to run one client's bill pay? Like, it was
Really
kind of
wasn't
hard.
super complicated. Once we got it set up, looking back, I say it wasn't super complicated,
Uh-huh.
but it was a hurdle to get it started. But now looking back, we've made it extremely efficient and we have our processes. So I
Yeah.
don't see it as a hurdle now, but yeah.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I think what I'm usually counseling firms on when they're trying to decide if they're going to add it or not is it's really tough when you have one client doing it. Usually then it's an add-on to somebody's job. It's like you just added another hat to somebody versus it being a formal process. It's more a one-off kind of thing. And it seems like that's where you get yourself more in trouble is when
Mhm.
you're don't have processes and you're like, oh, let's pay bills today. And then they fall through and don't get followed up on. Okay, so yes, today you are correct. It is much easier. You have absolutely built a process to systematize and make it where anyone else can come in to our firm. They can follow the process. There's a flow of how the information goes. Here's when you do it, here's how you do it, here's how you follow up on it, here's how you make sure it got coded correctly in the books. We have that now, and I would call that a defining moment, personally, if someone wanted to run bill pay for families. Would you agree?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So here's what everyone really loves to hear. Where have you seen bill pay go wrong?
Where I've seen it go wrong is when we're not following up or if the process isn't followed. And so, of course, we have the process because we've been through doing bill pay for a while now. And so we've learned those pain points, should I say. And so I would say making sure that not only do the payments go out, but also making sure for those checks or ACHs, but mainly checks, that the checks are cashed
Mm,
and following up on that in a more timely manner than like with using bill.com. Of course, they'll let you know when a check is about to expire or whatever. But at that point, it's like 3 months. And
right.
so
You're way
following
past
up,
it.
following up before that to
Right.
one, did they receive the check? Which most of the time we found that they have received the check, they just haven't cashed the check. But if they didn't receive it, getting that out, getting a new check out to them, because and letting them know, hey, it was sent, because that also reflects on the client. They're thinking that the client hasn't paid them. And so letting them know, hey, the check was sent. It is important for us that you get paid in a timely manner. And so usually at that point, I also try and see if we can get them set up with electronic payments. But
Mm-hmm.
if they still want to receive checks, which some do, we'll make sure they get a new check. And then I follow up with them to make sure they actually receive that check and they cash it. And
Yeah.
so that's one of the things I've seen, I think, is the biggest pain point, or not a pain point, but just one of those things. And then
Mm-hmm.
another great thing is bill.com will catch duplicate invoices. So what we've seen with some clients is that duplicate invoices will come through. We catch them, but then sometimes it's a matter of the vendor, their accounting system isn't the best. And so we've had it probably one vendor with every client to where they'll send another invoice to the client and it's been paid and they've cashed the check or
Yeah.
they've received the
That's
payment.
happened.
And so it's
Mm-hmm.
like, it's also us then reaching out and being like, hey, we worked for this family. We received this invoice and we're showing that we sent payment to you on this date and you cashed the check on this date. Our point is to make sure you get paid in a timely manner. We want to make sure there's nothing outstanding, but we're
Of
showing you've
course.
been paid. And
Hmm.
so that also takes that off the client. And that's where I've
Hmm.
seen where clients really start to appreciate it. And then they really start to hand, if they haven't already, they start to hand more of the stuff just off to us to where
Hmm.
they're having the vendors email us directly, or at least make sure we're copied on all invoices,
Is
everything, because then
awesome.
they know we're just going to handle it. We're going to make sure
Yeah.
that they receive the payment, that
Yeah.
the payment is applied, and it just takes one more thing off their plate.
I laughed, I think yesterday, I saw an email come through for one of the donations that a family was making from a group that you had reached out to say, hey, can we get your ACH information? The family's making a donation. And the email that came back was, we don't give out our information. You can send a check. I was like, oh my God, this family's trying to give you, they're trying to give you money. Like quickly. And you want us to mail a check still till you get it in 2
Yeah.
weeks? What?
And with that one, that was a brand new charity. And of course, the family, they're a charitable
Right?
family. And so I just had responded because I was kind of taken aback by it, because out of all the charities we have ever reached out to for any
Yeah.
single client, we have never received that response.
No,
So
that
I
was a
just
new
let them
one.
know
Yeah.
I will reach out to the donor, because the client wants everything for us to handle everything, and everything to go via ACH and wire. And so
Yeah.
it'll be interesting what they end up saying, because out of 30 donations for the family, we have one that
Yeah.
wants to be processed differently. And we'll
Yeah.
see how that happens with that.
It wasn't a small donation. Like, it's not like it was a couple
Yeah.
$100 either. Like, it was a big donation. Like, why would you not want that to go ACH? I'm constantly amazed, actually. And dear listeners, the reason that we have encouraged all of our families to make their donations via ACH is because nonprofits, while we love you and we love the work that you do, they are notorious for not cashing their checks. Like, notorious. It's crazy how often those are the checks that you're running down to say, hey, did you get it?
Exactly.
I see that it was delivered. It's been a month and a half. Can you go to your CFO's desk and find that check and maybe put it in the bank? It's crazy. It's crazy. Like,
Yes. Yep.
anyway. Yes. So I saw that and just like, whew. And I think there's a half a chance that family says, you know what? Then we're not going to donate to you because this is our
Yeah.
process. Like,
Yeah.
get it, figure it out, or don't, but this is our process. But
Yeah.
like you said, we'll see. He hasn't come back and told us what he wants to do yet. So another one. So I think one of the other benefits, we were talking about this a couple weeks ago when we met with a new client. She was saying one of the things that she hates the most is continuously getting the phone calls. Hey, we haven't gotten your donation. Hey, will you give us a donation? Will you sponsor something? Or you said you would, but we haven't received your payment. She indicated that was like, she hates me. Chased down is, I think, were her words. Chased down
Yes.
for money. I get it. Like, nobody wants that. It doesn't matter what, if it's a donation or it's an invoice, whoever it is. So tell us a little bit about how you have, like, how you explained it to her that our goal is also for you not to be chased down. How are you going to handle that with this new client, this new family?
Yeah. And so we've dealt with it in the past where there will be one vendor that just happens to be a pain point for a client. And again, it usually happens because their accounting isn't exactly great. And so with
You're being very
one of our
kind right
clients,
now. You're
with
being
one of
very
our
kind.
clients, came on when we started doing bill pay for him, he was like, this one just super frustrates me because it's always a different amount and I don't know. And then he sends me something and then something the next week, and it's kind of off all over the place and it's frustrating. I can't keep track of it. And so what we did with that is we always introduce ourselves to the vendor and let them know that we're part of the team. We are
Mhm.
here to help the family, but we are also here to ensure that they're paid in a timely manner, but that there are certain things, certain ways it's going to work, you know? And so, like what we expressed with this one was that we're going to process their bills every 2 weeks. You'll get paid. I'll reach out for an invoice if you haven't sent
Right.
one, and then you'll get paid every 2 weeks if that happens to be the case, which that's the cadence with this one. And we just kind of take that over. And again, we continue to reinforce the idea that we are here to make things easier for the family, but we're here to make sure they get paid. But that there are just certain processes. And we really haven't had pushback with anybody. And the one pain point, he will usually still text me and be like, hey, just want to make sure I'm getting paid a massive
When have you
invoice. And
not?
I'm like,
When you followed the process.
yes. And you usually receive payments on Wednesday. You'll receive it on Wednesday. Or there was one where Monday was a holiday, and I already knew he was going to have the question. So I had told him Monday was a holiday. So he would likely be getting paid. He'd likely see the deposit on Thursday versus Wednesday. And so we just kind of take over that, because I'd much rather him text me or call me and be like, hey, am I getting paid, than them doing that to the client. And at one point he was frustrated about something. And I had told him the client was well aware of it, that this is, again, how we're going to do things. And again, our client had said he wanted us to take over it. So he said he was going to call him directly. And of course, he called him directly, and he was referred right back to us and said they handle it now. So, and then there's been no issues since. And so it's just it's a delicate line of being, we are here to make our client's life easier, but we're also here to make sure you get paid in a timely manner. And we want you to be paid in a timely manner.
Right.
So
with that particular family, that is when a really well-functioning partnership between us and the family really comes to life and shows how good it can be. When the family says, call White River. Why are you calling me? We've already told you. They handle all of the bills. They handle all of the donations. If you have a question, call them. If there's an issue, they will call me. Otherwise, you know how to reach them. That is a perfect example of setting expectations with the family so they know you don't have to take those calls. Just send them to voicemail and then forward us the voicemail. We'll call them back and we will reiterate. If you need something, please call us.
Yeah.
And for the family just to say, look, they handle it. Go talk to them. So one of the other things that I just want to note, if you are a group who is thinking about adding bill pay or doing it, want to do more of it, whatever, one of the things that we told this new family she was expressing this, I don't want to be chased. And the folks who are currently running the bill pay, they're like, we're doing our best. We are trying. Like, we are actively telling people, call us, don't call the family. Trying really hard to keep this chasing feeling from happening, because nobody wants that. And one of the things that I just want to note is we have often found that's not uncommon when somebody has been a part of the ecosphere for a long time. There's usually kind of this, this is how we've always done it. And there was a one-time exception where somebody called the family and the family handled it because they were trying to get it done, that morally they were trying to get the person to stop calling at that time. But it set a precedence. And so then it was like, well, if I call the family, they're going to get upset because I'm calling them and then I'm going to get paid. And so one of the things that we talked to this particular family about was the way that we are introduced and the way that we introduce, then come back and introduce ourselves as part of this process really it's almost like a reset sometimes. If we do it well and if it's presented well, like you said earlier, there's a process. We want you to get paid, and we are here to do that. Here's the process. Here's when we pay bills. Here's when we make donations. If you come in at certain times, this is when you're going to get in on the next bill run. And let's be honest, like, you're really good about grabbing those last minute ones and paying them early, usually, for most everybody. But even sometimes the family's like, no, if you told people the cutoff was Wednesday before we pay bills on Monday, it gets done on the next check run or the next ACH run. We're not gonna do one-offs unless it's something really important. You play by the process because the process works. And then we know nothing is falling through the cracks, and the family knows nothing is falling through the cracks.
Yeah.
So,
And I will say, I think the majority of the vendors we've worked with, and of course it's a transition period because like you said, things
always.
have worked a certain way for a certain amount of time or whatever. And if the vendor's been involved in the family circle for a while, they're used to certain things. And so it's a transition process, but it's just being
For sure.
patient during that transition process and continuing to reinforce it. Kind of like you said, these are when we're going to be, this is when we pay bills, get us your invoices by this date. And it's a transition period, but you have to stick with those guidelines because if
Right.
you bend, then they know there's that wiggle room.
There's
Now,
room.
for certain vendors, there will be exceptions made or whatever for large construction projects, stuff like
Of
that.
course.
But the majority of the vendors, I would say, actually really appreciate it once, the cadence is set up. Because a lot of times, sometimes they're getting paid quicker than they used to. There's a different cadence, maybe, but they're like, oh, these are actually, we don't have to email them 3 times or whatever.
Right.
We know because once the invoice is sent, I respond and let them know the invoice has been received. We'll be processed. The next round of bills is on this date. And now I don't even have to let some vendors know because they're like, hey, we know you're processing bills on the 19th. So here's the invoice.
Yep.
And so I see a lot of them really appreciate it actually. And we set up that good relationship with the vendors to let them know, yes, we represent the family, but we're also here to make it an easy and good process for you as well.
Yeah. I had an experience early on in my career where it was not with us, it was with another group who was paying bills for a family. And I always tell groups, if you're looking at doing this business, we are very lucky because we do have most of our families are very grateful. They do say, thank you for taking care of all of these invoices. They are very happy that they're not having to do it. It's off their plate. Generally speaking, bill pay is not one of those things that you're going to get patted on the back for very often. It is meant to happen, right? Like it's supposed to run like clockwork. Invoices come in, they get paid, they get reviewed, followed up on, and it's done, right? But I had early in my career, I was working with a family, somebody else was paying the bills. The family asked them to send, it wasn't too much. It was like $1,500 or something. And we sent an email to the bill pay, which was the procedure, and said, can you please pay this person? Here's at that point we were doing checks. Here's their address. Here's the amount. This really does need to go out as soon as possible. The group, who genuinely, they did fine. We really didn't have we really truly had no issues to speak of. Very easy to work with. It just so happened there wasn't context sent with this particular email for good reason, but it was, please pay it as soon as possible. It did not get paid in that as soon as possible. It did not get paid the next day or even that week. It got put in with the next bill run, which happened to have been like 2.5 weeks later because they'd just done a bill run. Well, as it turned out, the family was trying to do something really nice for someone to help them out for it. Like they came in, I think they did some gardening or something like that. And the family, because they knew that this person needed cash, I think they were trying to help with some medical bills or something like that. But the person wouldn't take it. So they came and did some gardening. Anyway, fast forward, it didn't get paid until 2.5 weeks later. Well, in between that, before it even got paid, actually, the person is calling the family saying, hey, you said you would pay me for this work, and I know you're trying to help us out, and I just, is it coming? The family is then calling the bill pay people saying, what? I told you this needed to be paid immediately. It's 4 days later, and this person still hasn't been paid. The bill pay people are like, we're so sorry. we missed that it was a one-off. It's scheduled to go into the next check run. And the family's like, no, like now, send it now. That miss started the family's hesitancy or like that over, well, what if I send it the next time and they still don't do it? Now someone's going to have to follow up on that even more. It would just started the thing in the back of your head where you're like, are they doing what I need them to do? Are they doing it in the time? Are people actually getting paid? And ultimately, that group lost that account because the family started getting that in their head, and it eroded trust. At the end of the day, it eroded trust for what otherwise was a very profitable business, very profitable family for that business. And so that is always my cautionary tale to groups who want to add bill pay. You're not going to get patted on the back for getting a bill out on time. Like, that's your job. But you're sure going to get the call when something didn't get paid. Or a lot of times what happens, you just earlier mentioned, the check is literally sitting on their desk and they just haven't deposited it. And yet they're calling the family saying, hey, you told us you were going to send us a $100,000 donation and we haven't sent it yet. We're like, so then the family's calling and you're like, no, actually, that was mailed 2 weeks ago and I can confirm that they received it. Let me make a phone call. It's just that dynamic that can go wonderfully. And as you said, it can be a huge value add to a family. It can also take an otherwise profitable relationship and erode trust and send it down the tube. And you may not even realize it's happening at that point.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate.
And that's why the follow-up is so important. And also just paying attention to those details, because once you get in the cadence of doing it, the regular bills that are going to be coming in, their regular vendors, the pool guy and the landscaping and all of that, and being able to recognize those one-offs even on your own, not necessarily a client even having to say something to you about it. But if it's a larger invoice or if is to pay somebody back or whatever it might be, of just a quick response being excellent. Just want to confirm this is good to process on the next bill pay run, or do you want us to process this one off? And so, because asking that question is never going to get you
You're
in
not
trouble
going to get
with
in
the
trouble.
client.
No.
And so a lot of times they will respond and be like, nope, they're good to be paid on the next cycle. Or, yeah, do you know what? That would be great. Let's go ahead. If you can go ahead and process it as a one-off. And again, the follow-up, because like you said, you're not going to necessarily always be thanked for it, but that's the biggest time I get clients responding to me is when I am following up and being like, hey, you've had this check, we mailed a check on this date and I don't see it's been cashed yet, just making sure you received it, because we always typically will copy the client on those. And that's when you get more of the things is through the follow-up. And so that's why it's important. Bill pay, I think, is again something pretty easy to do, but it is also easy to, when you make a mistake with bill pay, like you said, it can have it has consequences. It erodes that trust. It makes them then think, okay, is this actually going to be paid? Where if you have a solid process and you have a follow-up process and you are making sure that payments are going out and checks are being cashed and everything like that, that can solve, and being ahead of it versus being reactive to it. If you're reaching out a week after the check should have been received or 2 weeks and just saying, hey, check should have been received on this date, just want to confirm you received it. It's just that little thing, that being ahead of it helps drastically.
Yeah. Yes, totally agree. It also, from my perspective, because you are the one that's typically reviewing everything. If I get the call from the family, which, let's face it, most of the time they want to talk to you, so they call you directly. But every once in a while, they hit the wrong button. They hit Christi versus Michelle, and they get me. They're like, hey, oh, by the way, can you tell me where that's at? I'm like, actually, yes, I can. Stand by. Let me pull up the report that the team has put together. Yep, I see that check went out here, or that ACH went out. I can see that it cleared, or, oh, I see it went out a week ago. Looks like follow-up actually went out yesterday. We should be hearing back and we'll update. So from if you're not the one paying the bills and doing the follow-up and staying on top of all of those, also having something, a report or a spreadsheet or whatever it is, somewhere else that the rest of the team can see, that's really helpful. What do you think about multiple people paying bills for the same client?
Not my favorite.
Tell us what goes wrong. What can go wrong when you got multiple people, multiple fingers in one family's bill pay process?
Yeah, I think it helps to have one person because again, you get used to the cadence, you really get to know the client, you get to know the vendors, you get to know what's normal, what's not normal. And so if all of a sudden, let's say there's a vendor and there's a invoice that comes through, I'm familiar with the family, let's say, and I'm like, something doesn't necessarily look right with this. It's because I've been working with the vendor and I've been working with the family
Yeah.
that I
Yeah.
can catch certain things that somebody else might not.
That's right.
And
I might
so,
not catch something.
exactly.
Yeah.
And so we had a vendor that we paid regularly for a client, very large amounts and everything like that. And we got an email about bank information changing. And to me, that was a red flag. And so
Mm-hmm.
reached out to the vendor. They did actually confirm in that case that they had updated their bank information and everything. And so, but I have that relationship with the vendor too. But there have
Mm-hmm.
been other times where, all of a sudden they've emailed, they're like, hey, our information got compromised. And so
Right. Could have
I just
gone the
think it
other way.
helps for us to be able, one person to be working with a family for bill pay or to be the main person on it, just because you get used to seeing the regular invoices and everything like that. Another one we received a large invoice, not a large invoice necessarily for the family, but a large invoice for the vendor, and ended up reaching out. And part of the bill was for a piece of equipment, but that had already actually been paid by the house manager. And so that would have ended up being us paying an $8,000 bill twice. And
Not
so, but
nothing
if someone wasn't necessarily familiar with the family, the invoice amount was a regular, I mean, not out, wasn't out of range for the client, but it was out of range for the vendor.
for the vendor. Yeah. There's definitely, I feel like a big part of it's hard to quantify dollars, although I think I've tried a few times. The combination of paying bills and doing the bookkeeping, because you become so familiar with the vendors, with the family spending habits on the bill pay side, and you're seeing that then come back through the accounts, you're seeing the checks clear, you know where they're at. Like, we know when our clients are traveling. We know when they're in Europe or they're in Greece or California because they're typically in Florida. Like, we know whenever they're out of their home areas. And we can catch those kinds of things because you're seeing either on the bill pay side or on the bookkeeping side, you're seeing trends come through once we've worked with a family for even as low as a few months. You start
Yeah.
building these trend patterns and getting to know them and their spending patterns and habits and the vendors. And so we've caught several things through the bill pay side, like you just said, or on the bookkeeping side, because we're watching those month over month cash flow trends and expense trends. We've got several things over the years that didn't need to be paid, have gone back and said, that was paid a couple of times ago, or it looks like that's already been paid. We don't need to pay that again. The utilities, that's always my favorite example. When we see the utility bill come through and it's 5 times the historical
Yeah.
trends, and we're like, did you fill the swimming pool or do we have a water leak? Sometimes it's the water leak, and we're the ones that catch it because we're watching the cash flow. We're watching the trends.
Yep.
And so it is interesting. We still have a lot of clients that just do auto pay for their utilities. Not everyone, but I actually like it better when we're able to also pay the utilities because we catch it so much faster when we see
Yep.
the invoice immediately versus the automatic payment where maybe it pays out in 3 weeks or something. We're able to catch stuff super fast. We've saved clients a lot of money between those two functions just by paying attention to what the invoices are Or my favorite, what did not get paid? Because the client is still paying some things. We've had several
Yep.
clients who we didn't start out doing bill pay. We just started doing bookkeeping for them. And we were watching the trends and we were like, hey, usually property taxes are paid in your state. They're usually paid in
Yes.
like October and January. I don't see either. Are they paid from somewhere else? Is there an account we don't like? Could have absolutely been paid. More times than not, they didn't get paid. And we're like,
Exactly. And we have a
those are
family
the,
that really happened for.
yeah,
And
yes,
now they have multiple homes. And so I have reminders on my calendar for task of when there are property taxes due.
that's right.
And then at one of their houses, they have property taxes and then they have school taxes, which are paid separately than the property taxes, and they're biannual versus quarterly and everything. And so I
Yeah.
have all those set up to automatically go in and pull the bills from the appraisal district and everything on whatever cadence it is, and I just add them in automatically because also the property tax bill is sometimes going to that house and they're not at that house all the time. And so then we don't get the
Mail.
invoice and they don't send it to us. And so, yeah.
Right. They're busy. They're doing other things. They got something in the mail and they thought, oh, somebody's handling it, and didn't remember that we're not set up to be automatically copied. And so we didn't probably get it. Yeah. So, yes. So it goes both ways. We catch things on both sides. Hey, we need to pay the loan this month, or hey, we need to, income didn't come in. We've had that happen several times for one of our families that we are tracking that income cash flow and they didn't have I think the LOA ran out. And it was set up before us. We just knew that cash was coming in and then it stopped coming in. And we were like, hey, you didn't get paid from that account last month. That kind of changes our cash flow. Did you know you didn't get paid? Did you stop it? What's happening? But just asking the question, they were like, no, I didn't stop it. Okay, let us call the bank and say, hey, why did that stop? Oh, the LOA ran out and we expired and we didn't call the client. Cool. Could you do that real quick so we can get that back going? And then could you make us that payment if we got things to do with it? So super, super important. And definitely if a group's going to do it, I agree with you that follow-up is probably one of the, like, get the bill in and make sure it's correct. But that follow-up is really a super high on that priority list. Are you trying to get everybody to do ACH now, just as a general practice? If we get an invoice
Yes.
and we don't have them in, you're proactively reaching out to say,
Yes.
hi,
And
we have
so
a system.
when we get a new,
Let's get you in it.
yep, when we get a vendor, we always reach out and introduce ourselves and then also let them know that they can be paid through ACH. They can set up their own account through bill.com and manage their information directly themselves.
Right? We
Which
don't
is
need your bank
typically the
information.
recommended way to go. But also, if they don't want to, if they provide me the information, I'm happy to enter it for them. And
Yeah.
so I think just for the pure fact that one, I'm also saying, hey, the ACH is going to get you paid quicker. And then we're not having to chase down people for checks or anything like that. And so the majority of our vendors are on ACH. Now you have those holdouts, but I've even seen with their holdouts, like for one, if they happen to not receive a check, or then they receive a check and then had someone lose the check,
Tends to change their
that
attitude.
it does, because then they're like, oh, yeah, okay, yes,
Yeah.
we'll do ACH, because ACH doesn't cost them anything. It's no cost to the vendor or anything like that.
And it's less expensive to the
once they're
client.
set up, yeah. And
Yeah,
so
it's
once
less
they're set
expensive
up on
to the client.
ACH, they seem
So
pretty
easy.
happy. I have no complaints about it.
Yeah. So we're getting a little bit long, but I want to address a couple of things. So we use Bill, formerly known as Bill.com. We still call it Bill.com because it's incredibly confusing if you just say, hey, let's go pay Bill. And you're like, So we use Bill.com for our family bills. There are certainly other systems out there. We've used Bill from the beginning. I don't think we haven't really tried any others necessarily because it does get the job done. We can put in routing, we can put in measurements, we can do a lot in it. And for us, from a compliance standpoint, that's huge. We want to have routing. We want to have, if it's over 20,000 that so-and-so needs to approve, or we need 2 approvers, or if it's over 100,000 or something like that. It gives us that crossing T's and dotting I's. But you've also run across a few little kinks in Bill.com, specifically when we are setting families up. It seems like that's always when there's something special happening, right? Almost every time. It's actually really uncanny because that we've had this happen multiple times now with multiple families on the setup. So first of all, if you're going to set this up, Michelle, would you agree, like, there is a lot of work that goes in to onboarding a family into bill pay processes, into the systems? Is that fair?
Yes.
Yeah.
To do it correctly, absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. I'm going to suggest that you should not try and just like pitch it kind of here and there and cobble it together. If you're going to do the service, have an onboarding plan and do the onboarding plan. Like, we'll just pick that up real quick. We'll just take care of that. Well, do your onboarding and do it well from the beginning. Because we've also made that mistake, right? Like, we've hopped into something where a family just said, oh my God, can you please just take it? We're like, yes, we can. Because our favorite word is yes. Yeah. And then we've regretted it. Because we just didn't take the time.
Well, and it's just the more time you spend up front to get it set up correctly just makes it work that much seamlessly going forward. And so again, it comes back to the processes and the procedures you have in place, which we have in place because we've learned. And
because
so,
we've learned.
That's right. Anything can be fixed and we can go back and make it right and everything. But having that extra time to just set it up correctly from the start just makes everybody's lives so much easier going forward.
Yeah. So what are some of the hiccups that you have run into over the years, specifically with Bill, but honestly, these issues may translate to others as well. So give us a story about when the setup and a bill payment clashed.
Yeah. So I would say truly understanding what account are we going to be paying bills out of,
or accounts.
Understanding that. Yes, exactly. And also understanding that if there are different accounts we're paying bills out of, what goes to what, and understanding that. But that also comes with understanding the client and everything like that, which again comes back to the onboarding process and really trying to have as much information as you can when you get started to make it an easy process and an easy buy-in for the client. Because the last thing you want is, let's say they have 3 different houses and they're paid out of different accounts, let's just say. Knowing the expenses that are coming into each of the houses is going to be key, because you want to make sure you're paying it out of the right account from the start and you're not having to bother the client all the time. Yes, if there's a question and you can't figure it out, ultimately, yes, we'll ask the client. But it's also part of that of know your client that is important for us to truly understand, to make it a seamless process for the client and for the team, and making sure everything is paid correctly, but making sure the bank accounts are linked and making sure things are being paid out of the correct account and they're set up correctly, and that we have all the information needed to make sure the link is there and that things are getting paid.
Yeah.
Also comes into case, we had a situation with a client to where all of a sudden the bank husband had passed away, and all of a sudden the bank closed the account without letting the customer know. So then all of a sudden, technically all these bills had been paid, and then they got rejected, or there was a rejection. Vendor still got paid on time, but there was a rejection on the Bill.com side because the bills had been paid, but then when they went to pull the money, the account was going and closed. And so just making sure there's a clear line of communication with the client, especially on those things. That one really couldn't be avoided because they had no idea that the bank had closed the account, but it's just paying attention to the details in the very beginning and making sure it's coded as the right account, checking versus savings and all of that. And is it business or personal? And just getting all that coding down in the very beginning is just
Makes a difference.
paramount. Yeah.
You also ran into the issue, I think twice, with two separate clients when we were going through the onboarding process for their bill pay. Understandably, they sent us an invoice and they asked us to wire money. Remember those?
Yes.
So I'm chalking that up to a quirk inside the bill.com system that I think people need to understand, need to at least know about. So tell us just real quick a little bit about what happened on those and then
Yeah.
ultimately how you fixed it.
With bill.com, you can't do domestic wires. And so they don't do them. It's not possible to do them. And so it's one, setting expectations and knowing that up front because we weren't necessarily aware of that. And then also, they do have the ability to, you can do pay faster. So that has the ability to issue a payment quicker. If ACH, let's say it takes 2 days, they have pay faster options that the cost is reasonable, same as like a bank wire fee for it to be paid same day or anything like that. And so one of the issues we ran into is we were able to do that and it said pay faster. And so I told the client we could do it and I went to do it and it kept giving me an error. And then it came back that they have to be qualified for a certain amount. So then I had to work with the bill.com team. I was like, we can provide whatever needed. It was for like $100,000. I was like, the client has more than enough money in this account. I promise. But knowing that was actually an approval process, now we know to just go ahead and try and get that approval from the start.
Yep.
In case it's ever needed.
Right.
Because until they establish a regular cadence of much larger payments and everything like that, it's not automatic, but there is a process for that. And so going ahead and getting ahead of the process and having it there before it's actually needed is key.
Yeah. So just to recap that, what we learned is that almost always if a client needs to send something big out, it's going to happen almost immediately before you've really built up a history with the processor, in this case, Bill. And so they don't know who you are. In their defense, they don't know who you are. They don't have a history to fall back on. They can't see that this is not a crazy amount of wire to go out. And I mean, you spent hours on the phone. And we've had it happen. I think we've had it happen twice where big bills needed to go out and there just wasn't enough history with that client, with that account, that it hung up because the bill said, no, you like falls out. This is a red flag for us. It's a liability.
Yeah.
And you've had to circumvent and work hard to get those out on behalf of the family. And to the credit of the families, they mostly understood as you were going back and talking to them.
The families were great once I explained what the situation was. And so also, again, open communication and honest, like, hey, like,
Yeah.
I mean, with the one issue, I actually went back to the client and I was like, I think I should probably reach out to your bank and we should possibly just do a wire. And his response was, yeah, we're going to do more of these in the future. So I'm good. Like, it doesn't necessarily have to go right this second. Let's get through the process. It's also understanding the client and really understanding, like, this, one, can we process it effectively in bill.com, but also having relationships with their banks and everything like that, to where there was one case where I just straight up told the client, yeah, this is going to be best sent as a wire and it should probably be done directly from the bank. And guess what? I've already reached out to the bank. They have the information. They're ready to help you process it if we decide on that method, leaving it up to the client, but really being honest about it and letting them really know we're happy to do it. But this might be the case where you want to do one directly through the bank, but having that relationship with the other advisors to just be like, hey, they sent me this And I really think it should probably be done as a wire. I'm going to ask them and talk to them, but can you help with this if I provide you all instructions and everything? And it ended up being a seamless process for the client, but it's just also knowing the limitations of bill.com and when we can definitely get it done, but when it might be a better idea to just say, hey,
It's called bank.
this should be a wire. Yeah.
Yeah. Generally speaking, I think we've been pretty happy with Bill.
Yes, absolutely.
Generally speaking.
Yes.
Yeah. But definitely, I would agree with you. Knowing that there are some things that could come up. Also, I would say if you have someone at Bill, especially if you're on the family office side, having a phone number to call, super helpful versus going through the help desk. And I think some of that comes with they have to get to know you as well and realize, oh, no, they really do process. Like they're on the family office side. They're processing bills. These are high ticket invoices a lot of times. That has also been helpful whenever we can, before they leave and you get another representative. But having a representative can be really useful when dealing directly with Bill, when you need to know why is something not getting processed, because it does happen. So yeah. Awesome. Okay. Well, we are mostly at the top of the hour. And so folks might be getting a little tired of bill talk, invoice talk. So we're going to wrap this up. Michelle, thank you. Appreciate you doing this with me, giving everybody a little bit of a behind the scenes on some things that have worked, some things that don't work, some things to keep in mind. I hope if you are listening to this podcast and you have stuck with us all the way to the end, I hope there's some things that you picked up on that you can implement, you can keep in mind, you can pass on to your team if you are running bills or if you're thinking about it. Have some things to keep in mind. So with that, we will say goodbye for the day and hope to see you again. Y'all have a great day. Thank you for joining me today on the Family Office Success Podcast. I hope you found this conversation insightful and valuable as you navigate the complexities of family office services. If you're looking for more ideas or resources or want to explore how we can support your family office or your family through services and training and strategy, connect with me on LinkedIn or visit our website at whiteriverconsultants.com and be sure to subscribe to our newsletter for updates and expert insights. And if you're ready to take your family office to the next level, consider joining our mastermind where we can help you manage that chaos and create better outcomes for the families you serve. Until next time, I'm Christi Van Rite, and this has been the Family Office Success Podcast. Take care and keep building for the future.